Good evening. I'll call the February 1st Building Committee to order. Item 1, approval of the December 7th committee meeting minutes. So moved. We have a motion and we have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 2, facilities update. Mr. Toddy.
I got a cheat sheet, so if I get somebody's name wrong, it's because I read the wrong sheet. Sorry, I don't know his name just yet. Good evening. I'll begin my facilities update with custodial. So we completed an annual asbestos training, which is something required by federal law. We set up our next custodial training for February 27th, where we're going to be covering recoat prep procedures for VCT floors. So if anybody's interested in that topic, please feel free to join us. We've completed the installation of new paper towel dispensers, and in that process, we stopped and took a look at our hand soap. These are some numbers. I just wanted to run the math with you really quickly right now. We've been purchasing hand soap from Hilliard at $70.13 per case. A case has 4 1,230 milliliter bottles, and the dispensers for that soap just dispense 0.6 milliliters every time you push the lever to get soap in your hand. I'm a guy, I get 4 pumps before I wash my hands. Some people get 1, so it all just kind of factors into our consumption. The company that was low bidder on the paper towels offered us a price for their soap at $27.60 per case. Their cases have 4 1,000 milliliter bottles, and their dispensers dispense a little bit more at 0.7 milliliters per press. So as you continue through the math, I figured it dollars per 100 presses to get a number that we can understand, because you get per press, it's just too small. So right now we're paying 86 cents for every 100 presses of a hand soap dispenser. HD Supply, we can get 48 cents per 100 presses. That's 44.2% reduction. We buy typically, of the Hilliard product, we're buying 24 cases per month. It's $70 a case. Spending about a little over north of $20,000 a year. A 44% reduction, we can save $9,000 a year on hand soap. So we're going to proceed with switching vendors on hand soap to realize that savings in our operating budget. Grounds has been mostly pushing snow out of the way. We've been very fortunate. We've had a pretty easy winter. We were installing a new cutting edge on the JCB plow, and we noticed some of the welds underneath the attachment are failing. If you've been around for a while, you've heard me talk a lot about this piece of equipment. It's out now, getting welded back together. Fortunately, there's no storms on the horizon, and we'll have that back in service before the next snowfall. Maintenance department, we've installed a new electric cooktop at Gonick Elementary School. This stove cost $7,637. We were able to work with Fresh Picks and Mr. Ganane over at the high school. There's a kitchen keep room underneath where we've had equipment stored since long before I started working in the district. It's stuff we've never used, it's just been sitting down there. So we were able to sell that as used equipment and realize $7,000 in credit, which we applied to the new stove. So we got a new stove in Gonick for $637.42. The new cafeteria tables that we ordered have been received and distributed to the schools. 9 went to McClelland, 7 went to Maple Street School, and 3 went to Chamberlain to complete. Chamberlain had gotten some the previous year, and we just completed the allotment to Chamberlain. I want to point out something. This is one of the things, just makes me so proud of my staff. This is some 2x4s, a little bit of rebar. There's some caster wheels under here, some pipe clamps. This is stuff that was just garbage. It was laying around the shop. And we had all these cafeteria tables to move. And many of our schools, you just roll right in, but the door height, the threshold header on the door, cafeteria tables are taller than that. So you have to lean them back to wheel them through. And my guys in wrestling with this stuff looked at a pile of junk and said, hey, I'm going to make my own custom cafeteria table dolly to get these tables in and out of the schools. And that's what you're looking at right there. That's it in action, and couldn't be more proud of that group of people. Spalding High School Band and Chorus project is still in design process. This is a floor plan. There's some changes in here to the layout. Biggest thing I want to point out is this wall is angled, which is one of the big in acoustic layout. If you lay out a square room, you create much more reverberation. If you take one wall and just put a few degrees into it, the sound deadens itself. It gets trapped in the room. So just that little change is going to improve the acoustics tremendously in those two spaces. This is a preliminary mechanical layout this proposal is for one new 30-ton energy recovery ventilation unit on the roof to serve the spaces. We're still trying to tease out how we're going to achieve zone control, which is not immediately evident in this drawing. So we're still working that forward, still with hopes of this construction happening this summer. Air quality improvement project. Next big push will be February break, where we plan to complete some additional structural steel improvements, which will allow for a little bit of more rooftop equipment to be installed. And these three units that you're looking at here that serve the cafeteria, the library, and the art suite, those were set over Thanksgiving break. They're going to be started up during February break, so that will get going. Work orders completed to work orders created. This is a 2-month period. I'm going to report to you from December 1st, 23 through January 31st, a 2-month period. We completed 244 work orders, which is up from 64 in the previous reporting period, but that was only 1 month. Created 356 new work orders, which is up from 104 in the previous 1-month period, giving us a close ratio of 0.69 to 1, which is up from 0.62 to 1. And we now have open 110 work orders from the December-January allotment, with an average days from assigned to complete per work order of 9.99. And there's a little look at work orders by problem type. So you can see it's pretty much all across plumbing, lighting, keys, locks, heating and cooling, grounds, facilities. We get the full run of stuff. And that's all I have for facilities update.
Thank you, Mr. Toddy. Is there any questions from the committee for Mr. Toddy? Mr. Pappas?
Just regarding the band room renovation, I assume, I don't know if I ever asked or if it was ever brought up, but that includes air conditioning to keep the instruments
Yes,
properly conditioned.
the room has air conditioning now. The new design will have air conditioning.
Okay, follow-up there is, with moving, I assume you have to move everything out in about 5 months, right? Have you started planning for that yet, or is that going to be down the road?
We're still down because we're still coordinating the rest of the building project, but
Okay.
there is a lot going on in that school this summer.
For sure.
The one piece that we've talked to the rec department, and we've talked to any of the other groups that want to use the school, and we're trying to discourage push as much use of Spalding High School to other locations as we can for the summer.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Toddy? Thank you, sir.
Sir.
Appreciate it. Moving on to item 3, which is budget review. For those new in the committee and new to looking at our budgets, you have 2 sections. There's a tab that says building, and then you'll have a tab that says CIP. Both of those pretty much will go under the budget review for the building committee. I know finance will actually get final review afterwards. I know it's your first night looking at it, Mr. Busey and Sam, Ms. Kelly, sorry. Are there any updates you want to bring to the committee regarding building?
Regarding building?
Yes. Mr. Toddy?
So, if you'd like, I'd be happy to run through the CIP projects line by line, and just give you an idea of what they are and what the thought process. And I can touch on a couple of the operating items as well.
That would be great, Mr. Toddy, thank you.
Okay.
We do CIP first or operating?
I'll start at CIP.
Does everybody know how to find that in your binder? The tab says CIP.
It's the only red tab in there. So the orange page under the red tab is CIP budget. You'll see it's broken into 2 sections. Top section is bonded capital improvement program, and the lower section is cash capital improvement program. And for the benefit of new members, I'll point out that the bonded numbers don't affect the operating budget. So you could cut the entire bonded program down to 0. It's not going to affect what we're over on the tax cap. That's a different thing entirely. Cash CIP projects are part of that number. So cuts there would affect, okay? So that said, the first number here is district-wide. DW is district-wide HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. We're carrying a number of $220,000. That's We're looking to replace 11 rooftop units, and we're figuring for budget purposes $20,000 apiece. A lot of them are in this building. There are 8 units that serve our rented spaces in this building. 5 of them are from 1999. 2 of them are from 2001. So those 7, I think, need to get replaced. There's 1 unit up there that's from 2005, and it doesn't have much life in it, but we can get to that one perhaps next year. What I'd point out to you is that we are tenants in this building, and as part of our lease agreement, the city is supposed to maintain and replace and operate that equipment for us. They don't do maintenance on it, we do all the maintenance on it. I did bring these numbers to the city, and they seemed open to taking 7 of those units and putting it into their budget so that they can pay for that replacement. I haven't seen that happen yet, so I've left it here until such a time as I know that that money is somewhere else. So I said 11 units, it would be the units here. There's 3 more at the middle school, which serve band and chorus area at the middle school, and then there's 1 more at McClellan that needs to get replaced. The next line is district-wide flooring, and we're looking to achieve here is the Spalding High School library, the Gonick library, Gonick kindergarten, and the second floor classrooms in Gonick have some half-carpet situations that all needs to get replaced. It's all well beyond its useful life. It's fraying, it's stained, it's in rough shape. I have some good numbers on that. The 125,000 is a pretty solid number of what needs to be done there. The next one, Spalding High School track, $450,000. That track was installed in 2001, had significant repairs in 2003 and 2005. It was resurfaced in 2008, and then it was resurfaced again in 2015. The 2015 resurfacing, it's a 5-year cycle to come back and put the rubber. So 2020, I reached out to the company and said, hey, come back, it's time to do the resurfacing. And they said, we're not putting any more surfaces on that because everything underneath has failed. There's cracks in the substrate. The pavement underneath the rubber is starting to fail. Those cracks are telegraphing through. As you walk the track, you can see them. They're really not, it doesn't look crazy bad when you look at it now. But it is the kind of thing where we could be hosting a track event and an official can walk out there and say, it's done. We're not having an event because there's a crack and somebody can trip. And Spalding's going to forfeit that event, and we're not going to have anybody running on that track. There are some repairs that we've done. There are some repairs that we could do in the future, but the track is well beyond its useful life expectancy, and it needs to be replaced. So here I'm going to stop and remind you that the 5-year committee works to create items, to collect items that go into the parking lot, and the building committee 5-year. The number 1 agenda item in the 5-year plan for the building committee is athletic needs review at the Spalding High School. That process will take some time. That would involve an architect and a civil engineer. So there's money here for you to decide. Do we want to keep this in the budget now so we can pursue that? And to that, if you skip down one, Spalding High School fence, $220,000. That's to replace all of the chain link around baseball, football, and the other areas. All of that fence is in really rough shape. All you have to do is drive by it to know what kind of shape it's in. I think the fence and the track would be part of a bigger look at the athletics. And then we'll skip special ed, and we'll go down to Spalding High gym locker room renovation, $725,000. That would also, I think, be part of a bigger look. So these numbers are here to kind of just, this is in the 5-year plan. This is stuff that we need to do. The most pressing one is the track, because that's the one that could lead to a closure or loss of use of a facility. We're not going to lose use of a facility because of a fence, and we're not going to lose use of a facility because the locker rooms are in rough shape. So that covers those. The other one that I skipped over was Spalding High School Special Education at $625,000. I looked through the 5-year parking lot, and I don't see this there. This number came about because Banwell Architects was reviewing the band and chorus space for us. Special education is directly under band and chorus, and while we had engineers and architects on site reviewing this section of the building, I asked them to go ahead and look at that because that space underneath is in rough shape. This would be a facelift for that space. The last item is district-wide playground improvements, $50,000. We currently have in budget $150,000 for a McClellan playground improvement. January 1st, some new ADA regulations kicked in, that the wood chip or 5R surfacing that we've used at playgrounds forever is no longer acceptable. We need poured-in-place rubber surfacing to, not for the entire area, but to any new structures. Anytime we make an improvement in a playground, we have to ensure that a chair can wheel to that new piece of equipment. And the poured-in-place rubber is costly, so this money was put in here to protect, to make sure that we can do the project that we've already budgeted for.
Is that the stuff that's like at the commons and
Yes.
the playground that's right here at the high school? The pines?
Yes, yeah, yeah. So that's it, that's everything I have for bonded. I don't know if you want to take questions now, or should I
Pause
just?
into this section.
Sure.
with that. So, Mr. Commander.
Discussion on the track. Just remind me, has there been discussion with the city? Because more users than the school as far as help with the cost of resurfacing or redoing the track?
I believe that conversation has been broached with the city. I haven't heard that there are any city dollars going into that project.
And again, Family Fun Day or Lilac Family Fun Fest or whatever, you know, that space is opened up for whatever for the city uses.
Sure.
The track is open to general public.
It's true of all of our play structures, all of our
Right.
fields, all of our areas when the school's not in session, those are open.
Correct.
Except for areas where we'd have particular and special problems, like William Allen, we had to put up some fencing to restrict access because there were a lot of extracurricular type problems going on there. So I hear what you're saying, yeah, the city does use that track, but they use everything and they haven't joined us as partners in any of the other projects, so.
And just as a follow-up, if I may, the 450 was the cost for doing the substrate, not just an overlay?
No,
that's digging that
yes,
up and.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but, so, there's a fence all along there, right? So
Right.
these all kind of tie into each other, because you go in there to do the track, and you're gonna be doing some of the fence,
You know,
at
Right.
least, right?
Right.
And we're also gonna chew up some of the irrigation that we just put in underneath it. But we know exactly where we're gonna hit it, and we'll be able to fix it.
Mr. Pappas.
I have 3 questions, I think. Now, you mentioned the fence, and fence goes all the way around all the athletic facilities. Is any of that a city responsibility? Because if I'm not mistaken, isn't the football field technically city property and not school property, even though we take care of it? Do I remember that?
Other than the fact that we don't own anything, all of our schools and all of our property are city property.
True.
Outside of that, I've heard of no special condition around the football field. It's always been part of our school in my mind. You can also look at the fabric and the post to determine how, whose fence it is. And our posts are all inbound, fabric outbound, they're ours,
Okay.
if you use that criteria.
Okay. As far as the track, is given that that's used by the public when school's not in session, and it's used by a lot of people, and there are cracks and it could be lifting and be trip hazards and whatnot, is there a liability to the district if we don't do anything?
Anytime you have a trip hazard, there's a liability to the district.
So if we,
Absolutely, yeah.
if we don't fix it, then we could be on the hook for lawsuits.
So right now, they're hairline cracks. We haven't got anything to an uneven surface, but the second you go from a hairline crack to an uneven surface, not only are we open for, we have exposure for liability, but that is when a coach is gonna say, no, or an officiant is gonna say, no, you kids can't run on this. Because the kids aren't minding they're running for their lives out there, trying to win. They're not worried about something that shouldn't be there. And a kid running like that takes a dive, that can hurt.
Okay. That's all I have for questions, but thank you.
Mrs. Stokes.
So the $50,000 for the playground improvement, if we're putting the rubber, because we want to make sure that somebody with a wheelchair can get there, are we looking at the playground as a whole and putting something in there so somebody in a wheelchair, those ADA swings? I mean, that's a centrally located school, so that would be great to put something there for a student with a wheelchair?
So my process for playgrounds remains unchanged, and what I've the first step of this was to get money in the budget, because we recognize there's a need, this one has to get done. Bad surfacing, it's got pea stone, which has been a problem for many years, this one has to get done, we know that. So we get some money in the budget, then I bring in some design people to create a design, which I've done, and I get some budgetary numbers on that. Then I take that, I bring it back to Ms. Jur, give it to her and ask her to involve all of her special education people to get their input on the ADA component of this. Is this what you need for your population of your kids? And I have that feedback now from them. That then gets written into what will eventually go out to bid. And so out of that whole area, we're talking about on the in-road of the middle school. That's the playground on that side. There is a swing structure that it will remain. In the corner closest to Brock Street, there's a couple of old climbing structures that will remain. The main climbing structure will go away, and there's another small structure that will go away. The new main structure will have ADA access. It will have a lower platform, so people with, and hopefully a ramp is one of the things we want to include in it, so people with mobility issues will be able to get to that structure. And then we're going to include a separate ADA swinging component. The other piece that we want to include, and this is all feedback from the wonderful staff in the building, is a musical component, because those kids with the more challenging mobility issues, the swinging thing, the climbing thing, well, the music thing is something maybe they can interact with, and they can be out there playing just like the rest of the kids.
I don't want to get emotional, but we never think of it, so I can't thank you enough. And this is going to be great because even the middle school kids and the surround, do you know what I mean? It's such a centrally located that all the things you're doing, I can't thank you enough. It's awesome. Thank you.
Mrs. Harrington?
Thank you. Back to the fence around Spalding High School. So the section of fence that's by the new shed and by that bus stop, when it was taken out a few months ago, several months ago by a vehicle, did the city repair it?
That was me through
Or did we-
our insurance.
Oh,
And
so
the-
it was-
in fact, the sign just inside of there is the only thing that the city has maintained in that space. It's the signage for this building
Yeah.
that's on this side of the fence.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Kuzmanos?
How many HVAC systems did you say was there again?
In the first line?
Yeah.
11.
So, yeah, there's 11, we're ballparking at 20,000 apiece.
So at 20,000 apiece, are we getting the environmental control systems that you would like at $20,000 apiece?
Well, yes, yes, this building is mostly for central office, which is not part of our digital control system, it's not part of our full building automation system. But the bulk of those units are in that. The 3 at the middle school, band, chorus, and the educational space in the middle, those would certainly be rolled into our DDC system, and the one in McClellan would as well.
And then we've already got with the utility companies and saying we're either adding units or replacing units, and this is our new footprint, and what can you do for us to lower the cost even more?
I don't even have the money in budget, so I have not reached out to a utility company to talk about rebates at this point.
And then, are you servicing them, or your guys servicing them, or we have an outside contractor?
We have a combination of both. On this building, it's almost exclusively outside contractors that service them. On the other district, so in this building, we're tenants.
Yeah.
In the other building, we're owners, although we don't, like as I said, we don't actually own anything.
Yeah, I'm worried about the outside, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, so on those ones, my guys will do filter changes, regular filter changes, and cleaning the outside air filters, and belts and grease and that kind of thing. But then for any of the heavier stuff, we have contracts for mechanical maintenance. And right now, that's something we're gonna talk about a little further, one of the budget drivers is, we don't have a controls contract in place, because we just put a brand new control system across the entire district that was in warranty for its first year, and it's now coming out of warranty.
And then we don't have a control specialist.
We currently contract with Control Technologies.
But we don't have one on the staff.
On staff, oh, no.
We don't have somebody that just deals with PLCs, just deals with control systems. If we have
Let
to
me-
come up, we have to constantly call them.
Let me back that up. We operate our building automation system. So if it's a matter, if we can look at stuff and know when there's a problem, and our staff, we have one guy that focuses on operating the building automation system. So he's able to do a certain amount, up to a certain level, okay? He's not a licensed electrician, he's, he didn't graduate from a controls program, he's not a tradesman, he's a maintenance guy. So he's able to respond to a certain level. After that, we bring in contractors. Currently for controls, those contractors is Control Technologies, but the good news is that we just finished installing Distech controls, which are completely open protocol. So we use Control Technologies because we like them, not because we're forced to use them because of proprietary technology.
Exactly. And to be honest, if we're just tenants here and the city's responsible, who do we need to contact with the city to start pushing back on if they're gonna make these, or who have you contacted that said the city's willing to take some of this and drop this budget, this number down?
So I spoke with Mike Riley, is the head of public buildings, and he's indicated a willingness to put this number into his budget. I haven't seen his budget, I don't know the numbers there, so I'm keeping it here for now. Or you can say, let's cut it right now.
I would say anything going with this building, if it belongs to the city, I say we cut it. I say we,
Are you
or
gonna-
reallocate that money to finding other units at our schools that need to be replaced, and then start working with the utility companies, and let's get a real ballpark number of how much we can reduce the older units, get them off the grid, and get the new units on, and maybe we can get a shared cost and a 2-year buyback, or a 3-year buyback.
Is that a motion, sir, or?
That's a motion for this building. If it belongs to the city, I motion that we cut that right now.
So we'll get to the discussion on that, but there's a motion, is there a second?
I'll second it for discussion.
Okay. For discussion, Mr. Camille.
And to the point, if we leave the line there, the disbursement of how that, first off, it doesn't affect the budget that we need to work on. Secondly, leaving that number at 220, he can I wouldn't recommend cutting anything. You leave that number there, and if it gets approved or the city picks up or whatever, the money's there for use as we see fit throughout the district. So we're not gonna cut anything.
Mr. Kuchma.
I say leave the money, but we don't fund this building, is what I'm really saying, is leave the money in the thing, but when it comes to this physical building is where
Just
tenants are.
operation, just procedural, your motion is to cut it.
Oh, sorry,
So if you do not want to cut it, you have the opportunity to withdraw your motion.
I'd like to withdraw my motion on that aspect, to cut the money from the budget, but what I would like to put a motion to, that we don't spend it on this facility, and if we're gonna keep it here, then let's,
So if you don't mind me, pause that motion with Mr. Todd was gonna put in 2 cents, and then I'll get back to that motion, okay? Mr. Todd.
So, of all of the air conditioning units, cooling units across the district, we're largely not air conditioned district. And these are the units, I think, that need to be replaced this year. If there were more units, if I thought there was other equipment that needed to replace now, we'd be talking about it. The fact that it's not here is my way of telling you that we don't have a lot of other stuff that needs to be done right now. This is the top of the hit parade. So we take this away and we move on with something else. We can do that. We're gonna start talking about heating and ventilating units, hot water coils inside of buildings. We're gonna refocus on probably the Chamberlain gym. And we're not talking about electric cooling anymore. We're not talking about utility rebates anymore, because we're talking about replacing H&V units in kind. So these are here because they're the ones that need to be done this year. It's not like these are here and there's a ton of stuff that I need to do this year that I'm not talking about. I'm talking about everything that we should be talking about this year.
so I get,
Just before we get into that, just quickly to the point where you're trying to get at with where we allocate the money. I see your point, and what we could ask is Mr. Toddy to work with the city to see if they did put it in anyone else's budget and bring that to the next meeting before we cut anything at this time. So
I'm sorry.
you
I
can
worded
go
that
forward.
wrong.
but I just wanted to
Yeah,
finish your
that, I would
conversation.
like to withdraw that, but I would like to say I would like you to work with the city. Because I'd rather put, if we're gonna keep this line item, like you said, there's other spots that benefit kids a lot more than a building that belongs to somebody else.
I couldn't agree with you
Get
more.
into that.
The other reason I was gonna add is if we say, well, let's leave money in, but not say, but we're not gonna do this building. At some point, I'm gonna stand up before city council, and I'm gonna do the same thing I'm doing with you now. And they're gonna say, what's that money for? And I'm gonna say, well, there's 4 units, I wanna do 3 at the middle school and 1 at McClellan, and the rest of it, I don't know where that's gonna be spent yet. And they're just gonna cut it right then. So, you know what I mean, like, we have to target it and say, this is the project that we're working on right now, get it done, move on to the next one. Because we're not gonna get past council any other way.
And there's further conversation we can get, and we've talked about, I'm gonna move to Mr. Downs.
So, same thing with Mr. Kuzma was saying about HVAC, it's the same thing with the track. Just like Mr. Mary said, that they use the track, the field multiple times throughout the year. I don't think the 450 should be set alone in our budget. I would also recommend that we go to the city and ask them to possibly help pay for that as well. Or if we're just gonna be the one paying for it, then why aren't we closing this and only allowing the district to use it? If that's unfortunate, I don't wanna do that, it's nice for the community to be able to go and use the track, but if we're the ones paying for it.
So, is there anything else on there?
No, I got nothing.
No, I'm just, what I would
I
like to
see
do
what
is,
you're saying.
I would like to make sure that we're going to the city as well to say, listen, if we're not gonna get help with the track, then we're gonna start closing it to the public.
I'll go to Mr. Christmas, and I think I know the plan that we should go with. Mr. Christmas.
Have we gone to DHS under grants for the fences or the government grants under security and school protection plan?
We have not, we did, the fence at William Allen was installed by a grant. We did go aggressively after all of the grants that came forward this year. And we got money through Stronger Connections, we got money through SAFE Grant, we've exhausted grants in a lot of different ways. Fencing was not one of them.
Mr. Pusey, with a lot of this being more your level, maybe city manager conversation, I don't know if you had any thoughts on what's been going on in this discussion.
I did bring this to Ms. Ambrose's attention. I think, I'll have to check the signage out there, but if I do recall, it is the only school facility that is open during the school day to the public. And I asked her if she could consider that to be put in the budget because it is allowable. I think it says like the outside lane during school hours or practice times. And there wasn't a lot of pension for picking it up. I was asked to give additional support on how the city uses the track. Well, if it's open to the public, which you all drive by and you see people there at night time and in the mornings, and we got complaints when Mr. Toddy was doing the irrigation project because it interrupted afternoon and morning walks because people were getting sprayed when they were testing the irrigation system. Those weren't students, those were city folk. So I do believe it is a shared space. It would be nice if we could collaborate on that. So I will continue to ask the city manager for that, but I would also implore you to speak to your council representatives on the same seats to ask for that favor as well.
So, to that point, I think that we need to keep this in our capital improvement fund. We need more discussion to the next 30 days until our next meeting. Mrs. Stokes.
So, just an example, so when, I know we had like the sleep out with Waypoint and we had like community members, I'm just thinking of that one, I know we had school members as well, but the kids slept inside and community members slept outside with tents on the fields and stuff. Who did they get permission from? Did they get permission from the city to spend the night out there? Did they get permission from the school?
Through our facilities.
Okay, so I guess my question is, are there anything, like, so when they have like the summer fun day or whatever they call it, who gives access to that?
So Mr. Toddy and I regularly participate, like, meetings have already started for the July date, and, so So those are things that the school department, as a city department, we participate in all those city meetings. So to your point, the city does use the environment quite often.
So I guess I would look at those things, if we're talking to Ms. Ambrose and she's asking us those things, I mean, if they have a citywide thing and we say, actually, yeah, we don't really want you to use our track, I mean, that's gonna affect the city immensely, which I don't think this board wants to do by any stretch of the imagination, but we also don't wanna be liable if there's an issue on the track. So I think if we're talking about, if she's asking for specifics, I would be bringing up multiple times when the city is saying, let's work in conjunction and have, you know, when we did the fireworks and all those wonderful things that we had where we opened up everything, including all of our fields, I would think that those would be the options that I would put forth, because we have pictures to show how many people were using those facilities.
Mr. Downs?
Do we have, as a district, could we put up a fence and make it so it's not open to the public? Do we have the right to do that? If we're gonna pay for all this and they're not gonna help us, can we shut it down and say, nope, you're not gonna be using the field and you're not gonna be using the track? Can we do that? Do you know?
Well, you have to remember that, as Mr. Toddy's pointed out, we don't own any of the facilities that we actually have, right? It's city property. It's been given to us. It's kind of like being like given a house and not having to pay a mortgage, right? I guess the owner could tell me at some point, I'm gonna park my car in the garage and you're gonna have to like it because it's my house and you're living there rent-free. I guess I would just leverage something that Ms. Stokes said, is that, again, to continue the partnership that we've tried to do, and they've said, can we collaborate on machinery, can we collaborate on other things? And I would just say that, again, it's a beautiful track that is in disrepair right now, but it's something that we want the community to continue to utilize, and I think, again, through a joint process, we could probably get there.
And that's what we can do.
Mr. Camille?
That's a slippery slope.
Yeah, and I agree.
Because I'm a taxpayer, that's my track.
No, I agree, big
So,
time taxpayer as
so,
well.
you know, and
But it
to
shouldn't
sit
be
there
just
and,
on our roads.
Let's
to
Robert's
sit,
rule
to
of
sit and say, that's a school, that's a city. When it comes to, you know, it's all the same tax bill that people are paying. It's just a matter of which budget's coming out of in regards to tax cap compliance and all the other things. That's a slippery slope to go down when we start trying to restrict things like that, but.
Mr. Downs?
No, Mr. Mayor, I do not want to do that. I use the track, I do it, that's the last thing I want to do. But I also don't feel that the city should just throw it right on ours and pretty much say, well, and then when we go present our budget, say, no, you got to make some cuts.
I agree.
So that's where it's a little frustration for me.
I hear.
And then the last thing I would want to do is, yes, not shut that down. No, I don't think that's what we'll end up doing. I don't think we need to get that route, but I think we need to have multiple conversations with city council, city manager about figuring this out.
I'm gonna go to Mrs. Keenes because you've had your turn and I'll give you an opportunity afterwards. Ms. Keenes?
I'm just curious, does the city clean up, participate, do anything when they have the Lilac Fun Festival and the fireworks? They do?
They do.
Okay, so we can't use that for leverage, but they don't do anything, so now they should help us on the other end, but it was a nice try.
Good try.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I agree with what Mr. Downs is saying, that anything we are gonna get extra money or have to use extra money, if we could use it on the kids in the school or into improving the facilities for the students, I'm much more, I mean, $450,000 on a track, or sorry, yeah, for the track, I believe is good for the athletes, because it has to be done. But the city should, or we should be able to reach out to them and go to them, especially when we have to reduce our budget, which means we have to take it from the kids.
Can I offer?
Please.
My take on the budget is we're a city department. All of our money comes from the same place, right? It comes from the constituents, it's raised by taxes. So if it's paid for in this department or that department or the other department, the tax burden is ultimately the same, right? But what this board might wish to consider is that these bonded lines, they don't affect our operating budget, they don't affect the overage on the tax cap. What they do affect is our debt service. So as we move into the future and we look at building a school, and the 5-year committee has toured all of the schools, we have schools that are aging out. The Department of Education tells me their school building lasts 30 years. It's 30 years. We've got, most of our inventory is well over 30 years old. So it's that debt service that we're adding to that's going to affect this board and how we look at the future of education in Rochester. How do we achieve renewal? That's really, it doesn't, whether that department or this department paid for it, it all comes from the same place at the end. It's who's supporting the debt service is really the question, for me.
So,
I completely agree with what you're saying, but I just want to add that if you don't fix it, that affects track and all those indoor and outdoor sports. It affects football, it affects soccer, it affects special ed sports as well. It affects, you kind of have to walk kind of on that field to get to even softball because there's that field back there. So I agree that we need to work in conjunction with this city in order to see if they'll assist us, but ultimately as a board member, I look at all those potential sports and everything that kids are not going to be able to play. You can't get on the football field without going through the track. So, I mean, just keep in mind all of those aspects, and as much as I agree, I hope the city considers paying for it. It's not affecting our budget for next year. Again, I understand, but that would be a lot of, the city said the athletics was really important to not fix that for $450,000. I think you really have to look at the effect that would place on our student athletes.
Mr. Bellows.
Thank you. Mr. Toddy, just to help me get up to speed here, so the bonded money, the bond has already been passed at some point in the past, and this is sort of a account that we can tap into, almost like a line of credit that we just have available? Or are we allocated a certain amount from that bond every year to spend?
So how and when these items are bonded is fully a function of the city. So when we get through this school board and city council and we come to that number, we can then spend that money, and how the city will deal with the bonding of it and when and where they bond it.
Can I follow up on that? So I think what I'm hearing you say is, we'd be asking the city to bond this $2.4 million as opposed to putting it in the operating budget.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, and that's the essential difference between bonded CIP and cash CIP. And I'll talk a little bit more about that once we get to the next section.
Mr. Dennis.
No, I think have the conversation with the city, but in the end, if they're not gonna help us with this, we have to figure it out and do it. We have to fix it, whether we get the help from the city or not. And that goes along with these in here. We cannot say, well, we're not gonna fix them, the HVACs. Unfortunately, if the city's not gonna help us, we gotta fix them. And that's just how it's gonna be.
Mr. Paps.
I was just gonna suggest, given that it's 7:45 and we've been spending like 45 minutes on the capital improvement, bonded capital improvement, can we agree that we will revisit this next month, given that usually
It's a great
we
idea.
just review it and then talk about it at
Yeah,
future date?
I just actually have some questions. I gave everybody else multiple turns. I'm gonna take mine.
Take it
Chair's
down.
gonna take a shot at it. So, when you mentioned, the fence, the locker rooms, and you mentioned just the 5-year, focus, did you like you said, it was a bigger conversation. Were you meaning pool the funds for that full project, or is that something you're thinking maybe it's a area we don't do right now? I just didn't know if you meant cut or keep.
You're asking about fence and locker room?
You said the fence, the locker rooms, because you had the track, the fence,
The three
and
that
locker
are
rooms.
related to that are track, fence, and locker room.
Yeah, which would all go towards the 5-year objective. But
Yes.
you just mentioned it's a bigger conversation, but this is a piece of that.
If
Yep.
you gave me the money today,
Yeah.
I would be very hard put to achieve any of these this summer because of all the construction projects that we've got going on, and and then next summer we're in a different budget cycle.
Yep.
So it may be prudent to drive the conversation forward, especially to get city involvement, is to put some money aside now to bring in an architect and a civil engineer to to create a conceptual plan, to speak with the stakeholders, to come up with the big 5-year plan for athletics across the district, break it into pieces, stage it, and get budget numbers on those, and then we know exactly how much we're talking about. Because there is need right now on the track.
Well,
No
I
doubt
think
about it.
that's a
But
non-
I think that, I feel confident that we can patch it through one more season. Far beyond that, I would not recommend that. So I think if you wanted to put all those together, I wouldn't zero it, but I would put money in now for engineering for this project. And we can have bonded engineering costs for big projects before.
And that's something we can discuss maybe at the future meeting, but the only other thing I was gonna ask is, Ms. Kelly, you can provide with this bonded CIP, an impact for our bond schedule, and maybe at the next meeting we can see, might be better for finance, to be honest with you.
The total 2.4.
The total 2.4 and any upcoming bond, the bond schedule for the next 10 years and the impacts of the board, we need to have that conversation with the entire board. Moving forward now, and I appreciate the debates, but let's keep this moving, if you don't mind. We have another committee to go with. So, Mr. Toddy, cash CIP.
Okay, I will buzz each of these lines, but before I do, let me talk about the cash CIP and the difference between the cash and the bond, because I think it speaks to some of the chair's comments about this year-end money, why can't we have it to do projects? And in SB2 towns, when there's a surplus at the end of the year, they vote a warrant article to put money into a facilities capital reserve. Then that money exists beyond the June 30th, and that money is used to offset spikes in the budget, the unknowns in the budget, right? The goal of budgeting is to get a nice flat thing that is very predictable. With 1 million square feet of 11 buildings of much outdated equipment or nearing end of useful life equipment, a lot of moving parts. There's things that break that a pump can go, it can be 20 grand. And we can't plan around that stuff. So the cash CIP is used for those unknowns in the budget. The other things that we usually throw into cash is vehicle replacements go into cash, and those are a little bit more known. But a lot of what you're gonna see in cash is the unknown. These are hedge funds for something went, it's broken, I gotta get it fixed to keep this school in business. There's where the money is, because it's not in our operating budget, because our operating budgets are pared down. So these are the funds to try to achieve what Mr. Downs was talking about. They do not cross over June 30th, and they do exist inside of our operating budget. So any cuts here will speak to the overage on the tax cap. Okay, that said, I'll move along. $25,000 is just a hedge against unforeseen failures in plumbing, HVAC. Again, 1 million square feet. I can name you 20 scenarios where we could spend $25,000 in the course of a week. Electrical upgrades, again, $25,000. It's not a lot when you're talking about 1 million square feet. This is maybe one or two panels here or there to get us back on our feet. Playground upgrades, 10 grand. You've heard me talk before about a single piece of equipment. A slide is about $7,000. These plastic pieces are ridiculously expensive. And once they get cracked, they become a liability. And you have to shut them down, and we need money to replace them. Fire suppression upgrades, these are the fire suppression systems. You get a surprise as a pipe gets leaked, a dry system gets water in it, and starts to corrode, you don't know it. All of a sudden, you've got a lot of repiping that needs to get done immediately. Paving and crack sealing, paving, sealing, crack filling, and striping. We've been on a really aggressive plan to get all of our parking lots up to date, and we're almost done at the end of that. So this line, this is a big one. There's $195,000. Right now, the in-drive at the middle school needs to be done. That's about a $300,000 project. Now that we've been replacing parking lots, we want to have an aggressive seal coating plan to keep our parking lots good. So right now, Gonick School and Chamberlain were both done about 4 years ago. They need to get seal coated to preserve the investment we've made in that pavement. So I have a need of about $340,000. Currently in budget, I have $150,000. So I'm asking for $195 to get all of that paving done. And this should be the last year of heavy paving projects in the district. Moving forward, we're going to see seal coating, crack filling, line striping, and we'll have a nice rotation on that. We'll be in pretty good shape. Food service equipment, $30,000 fresh picks, and I have worked together to create a priority list. The two things they're looking for is, on the highest of all the district-wide priorities, is a walk-in cooler at William Allen School. I'm not sure I'm gonna support them in that, but the other one is a dish machine at Chamberlain, which is definitely gonna need to be done. The last dish machine we did was Gonic for about $20,000. That was about 8 years ago, so I'm down budgeting $30,000 for a new dish machine at Chamberlain. Building security, $25,000, something like an A-phone or some camera failures. That could get eaten up pretty quickly. Door hardware is kind of same category. It's astounding what commercial door hardware costs. We're on a standardized key set across the district. Every single door is on one master key system. One of our cylinders is about $300. So we can spend that pretty quickly. And door hardware, if it's an exterior door, it has to be taken care of immediately. One-ton truck with a plow. I'm hoping to replace a 2002 3/4-ton pickup. It has 100,000 miles on it, rusting through the body panels, broken exhaust manifold, and there's a large tick in the engine. Truck is past its useful life expectancy. Hoping to field a 1-ton up from the 3/4-ton. And moving forward, I would like to, every time we replace a vehicle, I'd like to just field 1-tons, because these are our primary, we do all of our own snow removal. This is our primary snow removal vehicle, and 1/2-tons and 3/4-tons aren't always adequate to it. The rack truck, you'll remember I came to you before with a replacement of the rack truck that got pulled out of the budget, and we put some money in to replace the lift gate on the rack truck and to make some repairs to it. And we got a few more years out of it. The rack truck is a 2000, has 120,000 miles on it now. Leaf springs are rotted through, fuel system is not working, the computer system is not working, and the body panels are all rotting through. I'm also hoping to add a cargo body truck. We added a new maintenance position last year for that in-house maintenance kind of thing. I'd like to outfit a vehicle for this person. And my guys spend a lot of time running back and forth between a school and the shop. You go out, you look at a problem, oh, I need this. You're gonna come back here and you get it, and you go back there and take care of it. And then you look at the next thing, and there's a lot of time back and forth. We could field a cargo van similar to the food service truck that we bought a few years ago. We could fit that out with a bench generator. We could keep some tools in there. We can keep some filters in there. We can keep a lot of our lock sets and locksmithing stuff in there, and we can get a lot of work done and save a lot of time. So cargo body, the truck, $57,000. Zero-turn mower. Right now, this is for a 72-inch machine, which is we're hoping to replace a 1998 Toro that we're still operating. If I replace the 1998 Toro with a new machine, my primary mowers will be a 2003, a 2013, a 2014, and then this new machine. And that covers cash CIP.
Any questions on the cash CIP? Mr. Guzmanos?
When it comes to HVAC upgrades, is that including if you were to lose a unit and had to replace the refrigerant? Because 25, not that I want to add to our overcap, but 25,000 you could probably kill in one unit depending on the refrigerant.
I agree, we could. Fortunately, most of our stuff is old enough that we're looking at older refrigerants.
So we're looking at the R22s?
Well, no, I'm gonna take that back, because we lost, right now, we lost a single compressor at the tech center, a ACCU5 is a Daikin variable refrigerant volume unit. It's almost $20,000 to change a compressor.
Yep.
So yeah, that number could go up. I'm looking at the tax cap number, and I'm not gonna stand here and say, let's quadruple that number. The other thing to bear in mind is that's not the only place to go if we have that failure. We have the rest of the operating budget, and that's where, I have repair and maintenance dollars, and that money is in the operating budget is move aroundable. So if we ended up with, the really terrible situation, and we knew we had some open positions, we can move money around and we can find ways to fix it that way. So bear in mind, that's not the total.
Yep. Okay, that's just one of my questions.
Sure.
And then I have one more. Have we looked at, not that I'm just saying, the option between leasing you a 1-ton for 3 years versus the cost of just buying you one out? I'm not that I disagree with buying it outright.
I have not recently run the numbers on a cost comparison between a lease and ownership. We could certainly run some numbers on that. I lean towards ownership because look at the ages of the vehicles we're replacing.
Oh, yeah.
We use our stuff up. We're Yankees when it comes to that. We use it up or we do without. And you saw my little wooden cafeteria table mover. I've got some really skilled mechanics out here. I've got people that can weld, I've got people that can work on engines, I've got people that can do stuff.
Okay, so we're not just sending them out to service every single time?
Not every single time,
Okay.
but it depends on what else is going on that week.
Yeah, because the service cost has gone through the roof.
Sure it has, yeah.
Compared to just.
Yes.
It might be, it's nice to own, but if we're paying $2,000, $3,000 a year in service, well, if we have a lease and we have a service package, as much as you know as I do, we end up saving money even though we never own it.
Sure.
Mr. Perry?
Downside is,
The cargo body, is that a van type? Or is that-
Yeah, this would be
Not a trailer
like,
or something, right?
No, this
Okay.
is like the Ford Transit, or I forget what the Ram one is. It's when you can stand up in the back.
Yep,
Yeah.
okay. All right. And second, if I may,
Yes, sir.
to bring it up, the JCB loader, I know, but, I mean, next year or two, just looking ahead, I mean, that should be,
I
that
keep
should be
bringing it
coming
in
up.
front of you
I know,
because-
and I'm
because I wanna
I'm
have that
surprised it's not here,
conversation.
but,
When I look at the tax calculation, I'm not bringing it to you this year.
okay.
Cause
I mean, the trucks, I know you're prioritizing what you need to, and you do your job quite well, very well, and I'm not questioning you that, I'm just,
it's out there. And that might be something that could be achieved and realized in a short window in, say, the spring.
Yes.
Mr. Cusimano?
just to put it on the, I know that I know that
The machine.
Yeah, is an interesting conversation. Would you just put fillers out there for at least one? And we're not doing anything, and just get us some numbers back? Because I
Sure.
know you've had it with a service contract, so you're not out there messing with it all the time.
Sure.
Or having sent it to a one-source place that can do whatever they want. And charge us basically whatever they want.
Totally agree, yes, I can look
Just,
into that.
like I said, if you could put some fillers,
Yeah.
I'm not saying add it to the budget, just so we still have some numbers, maybe next year we can look at it, or maybe we find some money somewhere.
Any other questions regarding the cash CIP portion of the budget? Seeing none, Mr. Tati, operating.
So I'm looking at the same thing you are. Okay, so, the big change is here. On 2600, the repair and maintenance line is going up $165,000 is the ask. And 15,500 of this is to support feminine hygiene products across the district. This was an unfunded mandate from the state. We have some feminine hygiene product dispensers now. We have a few different kinds. We aren't standardized on anything. We have some collection, we have some without collection. It's kind of a mess what we have out there now. So I've worked with our current vendor to survey the entire district, talk with principals, what is the need in your building, how many vending machines do you need, where do you need them? We put them in nurse's office and other areas where principals have indicated that they would like them. And that whole program is close to $30,000 a year. We have $15,000 that we're spending now, and I'm looking to double that program to support that need. So 15.5 of that increase is targeted directly towards feminine hygiene products. $150,000 is the controls piece that we talked about. We installed a district-wide Distech beautiful control system. We don't have a maintenance plan on it. We put it in with grant dollars, and part of accepting of the grant, we said, yes, we're gonna maintain and take care of this. That doesn't mean that we can maintain it How we satisfy the terms of the grant is up to us. The grant doesn't say, you have to have this $150,000 contract, and if we were looking to cut something, maybe we can phase this contract in. I'm afraid you go out on a limb, though, where you start losing controls, and people say, well, you avoided your warranty because you didn't have maintenance done on it. So I'm putting it in now, and I also put it in with a caveat that this doesn't include the high school, because high school is still under construction, hasn't come out of warranty. So this is everything else. There's going to be more to ask later. The other piece that jumps out, so there's two general supply lines. There's 17,973. You heard me mention that we brought on a new maintenance person. So there's a new person out there. That person goes to Home Depot. They go to Lowe's. They go to the supply house. They have to, in order to do the work they do, they need materials to do the work they do. So this is to support the additional staff. And the line right below it was part of the last negotiation for the collective bargaining agreement. We matched what the city gives their employees in terms of a uniform service. Now the school employees get the same benefit that the city employees get, and that's the dollar value that reflects that you're seeing there. And that is a bit.
Is that it for all operating items?
Those are the big changes.
Those are the big changes.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Cameri?
Can you remind me on the dues and fees, why last year was 39,000? And it's great, we've got 37,000 out of that?
Well, that was the budgeted amount.
Right.
So you're looking at the expended amount. That money has been in the budget for a long time,
Gotcha. Yeah.
and we
Okay.
have not historically been spending it. So now we're saying, well, look, this is sitting here, we obviously don't need it because we obviously have not been spending it.
Good pickup on that. You're right, that was the budgeted amount, not spent, so, but thank you.
Mr. Pappas?
Just a reminder to the entire board, the feminine hygiene project, that it costs $15,000, actually $30,000, but to fully fund it is $15,000, is actually the result of a Spalding High School student who went to the State House and advocated for that program. So I believe we were one of the first districts to support her efforts in that program. So I just wanted to refresh everybody's memory on that.
Any other questions for Mr. Toddy regarding the budget? Any budget general for building questions while we're all here? Obviously, it looks like the bonded was the biggest topic of the night. That's right. All right, seeing no other budget review, we have 5-year. So those who are new to the committee, the top 3 items that the 5-year committee, or the 5-year section has been focused on, is a need study for arts and drama needs, and it's been focused on the high school. There's a district need down the road, which Mr. Toddy gave an update in his facilities update regarding the high school. We also have the need study of the athletic complex, which was touched upon with the bonded CIP, and something we can discuss at the next, or future budget conversations when we get into that. And then a paint schedule was just recently put on because the modulars was shifted off because of the new school. So that's something that will be discussed typically around breaks and when we get closer to the summer months. So I know we're looking for we'll get new topics when we get into the strategic process finishes, but in the meantime, that's where our focus is right now. I think budget's priority 1 personally, but is there any comments or conversation from the committee? Seeing none, going to go back to the agenda. We're move to item 5, public comments.
Yes.
Ms. Davis,
Waiting patiently.
you know the disclosure and everything that we have about public defaming and blah, blah, blah. 5 minutes, state your name and where you live. Thank you very much.
Okay, good morning, jeez. Good evening. Tabitha Davis, resident of Rochester. Somebody who was a big fan of track. I actually hold quite a few records in our district when I went to school 30 years ago. It is a big concern with the track because people do rollerblades, they ride their bikes. There are certain things that can't be on the track because we have special shoes for the track, and then if it goes into a hole or anything, we trip, I know I broke my shoulder for doing the pole, over the pole, I can't remember what it's called again. And I had to have surgery years down the line because it just kept popping out. I don't say close it to the public, but if the city owns it, the city should pay and put our money into the schools, into the students, or whatever needs to be done. If we are renting this building, why are we paying for the HVACs when the money could go somewhere completely different? I'm very surprised nobody on the board asked for the contract, like how much rent are we paying here, for one? And number two, what are the terms and conditions? What do we have to pay for? What does the city pay for? That's a good question. I'm not sure if the public is allowed to know what the contract is or whatever. I personally would like to know. But if we're renting, there is a law in New Hampshire that states that if you're renting something from somebody else and something goes wrong, it is their responsibility to pay for it, not the person renting it. If the committee wants the law, I can probably look it up and send it to you. Just let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else in attendance from the public, I'm going to close public comment. Item 6 is other. Does anybody have anything other? Seeing no hands, I'm going to close item 6. Item 7, looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much.